Welcome back, everyone. So glad you're here. I was planning to start this series of systems thinking basics this week and the next week as well. But since the launch of my last video unfolding the only skill that will matter in the AI economy, I have received a couple of direct messages on Instagram asking for more details about how this transition is out to happen. What do I mean by knowledge economy and AI economy? And how can we navigate successfully in this environment? First of all, please let me take the chance to thank you for your interest and involvement in the discussion. And inspired by your feedbacks, I thought that a mini series about transition to AI economy from knowledge economy can be helpful for anyone who is interested in understanding these key dynamics. If you haven't watched already, you can find that video in the icard. And if you are new to the channel, please consider subscribing and ringing bell to stay in the loop when I release new video. As I mentioned, after this mini series, we will dive into the fundamentals of systems thinking, which can help you to be prepared for the already going on transition that we are talking today and in the last video as well. So let's start with the first part of this mini series. I want to ask you a really serious question. You probably think about that at least a couple of times a month, as I do, and it probably keeps you awake at some nights. That is it really happening what sci-fi books and movies told us about the end of the human era? I think about that because every now and then some popular figures like Harari, Gary Marcus, and most notably Musk talks about AI, warns about AI, tries to establish a public discourse about AI, and maybe some of them might have concealed agendas of their own, but there is no single week that I haven't heard anything about AI, and its unintended consequences or maybe deliberate consequences since the launch of ChatGPT to the public. And this bothers me because what we see since the rise of social media is fundamentally a shitstorm with lots of hype flooded with unstructured, unconstructed information that make things even harder to understand. And what we see is usually anecdotal stories told by these popular figures or some simple facts that poorly represents the general idea. And in this two-part series, I want to help us to form a structural and systemic perspective to seek answers to the following questions. The first one is there a way that we can learn from our history about this transition? And second one is what will transitioning from knowledge economy to AI economy will look like? And third one is how AI economy will progress. And the last one, what are the potential opportunities for us to adapt to this grand shift in the economy? First part of the mini-series will be more about historical development to extract some patterns, and second part will be addressing the last two questions. And to answer these four questions, first we need to look some historical transitions of economy systems from the value creation perspective, because we understand economy as value transaction now, and then we can use the observable patterns in history to brainstorm about like what to expect from the near future in a structured and as much as systematic way. We all know that history begins with the invention of writing, right? And it is safe to say that we had invented writing because we invented trading, or in broader terms, economy. And how we know that? Because the oldest deciphered tablet, the Kish tablet, simply writes the details of a transaction for bookkeeping purposes. And from that day on, we have been using writing to progress our civilization. And during that process, we have transformed from one economy system to another that propelled our progress. And now we are in the blind spot of yet another transition. To understand value creation, we need to internalize What is economy, firstly? Economy is a system by which people and their organized structures like villages, guilds, companies, governments, etc., in a society produce, distribute, and consume goods and services to meet desires and needs, mainly driven by problems through exchanging value. So, what is a value? Value is simply a benefit or utility or satisfaction or any combination of them to individuals, organizations, or society. And the size of value is almost always proportional to the perception of the problem that's being addressed. That is, the bigger the problem, the higher the value of the solution. Using this perspective, I have categorized economy systems based on their value creation mechanisms. And at the heart of these mechanisms, there are three elements: the problem, solution, and core capital in action. Problem and solution are straightforward. They are the dominant problems during that era and main solutions provided. And core capital is a bit tricky, but it is the form of capital that produces the highest value in return for the solution in that economy that addressing the solution. So here is the seven economy systems that we as humanity have walked through our journey. They have subsistence economy, agricultural economy, tributary economy, mercantile economy, industrial economy, knowledge economy, and AI economy. In this perspective, when a society reaches a peak in an economy system, what happens is that it triggers a transition to a newer system as the majority of society can access to the solutions and new problems emerge within these systems, which will become the dominant problem of the next era. Now let's look at first one, the subsistence economy system. It is the most archaic one. It begins with our early ancestors. The dominant problem in that era is obviously survival, and the way we tackled this problem was like any other animal actually, like hunting, gathering, and foraging. Obviously, the defining capital of this era was muscle power used for hunting and competing against the other tribes or other animals to access to natural resources like hunting grounds and fresh water. When we found a copious ground to hunt and gather, we multiplied and grew into small communities of 40, 50 people. And as our nomadic ancestors reached to different parts of the world and challenged by a changing climate, especially towards the end of the last ice age, and grow to some sizable communities, they face a new problem. Now the competition against other tribes for grounds to hunt become even smaller than their ancestors used to. This led to unpredictable food supply to support these larger groups of tribes, and possibly this pressure gave birth to simple farming practices like horticulture and helped domestication of crops and animals to assure somehow predictable food supply compared to hunting and gathering. And as they saw the benefits of this invention through growing communities, which helped them to have more muscle power to compete and defend, and more tribes probably engaged in these practices, and ultimately this led to transition to agriculture economy, although started at different times across geographies, right? But nevertheless, now we are in the agriculture economy system, and our ancestors dealing with the dominant problem of need for more food as their villages grow in population, and they had to diversify the source of foods because of the unpredictable weather events. This is actually the main pattern of each transition. Emergent problem of previous era gets intensified as the time passes and becomes the defining problem of a new era. The emerging problem of consistent and predictable food supply in the late subsistence economy now become the dominant problem of the agricultural economy. To ensure consistent surplus of foods to feed their growing population, They invented two important solutions: irrigation and crop rotation. These solutions helped them to have enough food for their growing population. To irrigate water and rotate crops, the core capitals were obviously arable land and water resources, along with agricultural labor, including domesticated animals like oxen. However, a new problem was emerging. This is the management of resources and accumulated wealth, because now they're expanding to adjacent regions to farm, and furthermore, they need some protection mechanisms to preserve their wealth and surpluses, right? When they fail to manage this problem, their societies collapse. Archaeological sites are full of collapsed societies during that era. To solve this new problem, they tried different solutions, but what was common in all these trials that almost all trials were some form of social hierarchical structures. And beginning at around 4000 to 3000 BCs, we saw the rise of cities. This was the herald of upcoming tributary economy system. Now we found an organizational solution to our management of surplus and wealth problem. This rise of cities followed by the rise of kingdoms and then empires at around 1000 BC, with some setbacks like the great collapse of late Bronze Age. And however, the majority of old world is now organized as kingdoms and empires. And the dominant problem of this era was the intensified form of management problem inherited from the agricultural economy. That is the need for social stability in this new organization and better resource management. As we mastered the organizational capabilities by using religion as a form of social engineering on a great extent, we somehow managed the social stability in many regions from Mediterranean to China, especially through paying tributes and taxes to landlords and kings in an exchange for security and stability to solve this problem. However, it is true that we had so many failed examples of this new system. In this era, we see that the core form of capital was now transformed into tributes in the form of goods, crops, and services, along with keeping the prior era's core capital like arable land and labor, now labeled as serfs. As wealth accumulated in some regions to keep their positions, we see that these societies continued regional expansion strategies, but this time they extended it as far as they go because a new form of problem was on the rise. That is the growing demand for goods beyond local production. This new problem accelerated the invention of alternative and faster means of transportation across regions, especially for the overseas, because the intermediary empires between East and West was exercising higher and higher taxes to goods, taking a huge portion from the value stick, leaving this newly developing sector of merchants with less and less wealth. As this problem of growing demand for goods beyond local production intensified in the form of need for expanding wealth and resources for some of the regions because of the diminishing profits, making it the dominant problem of a new era, which is mercantile economy. Now, the new class of merchants was seeking ways to capture more value, and they were heavily investing in finding alternative routes for their trade. This pressure kicked the solution, the age of discovery, through advances in navigation and shipmaking technology, and ultimately, this new class flooded with wealth and power through global trade and colonization. The most significant invention of this era, apart from shipmaking, was perhaps the institutionalization of early banking systems, which helped a lot for the global trade to be started. Apparently, the core capital of this era was gold and silver, which is harvested from colonial resources, including slavery, along with the trade networks. This is the first time in our history that the importance of networks, both among people and hubs was understood as a form of capital. And as the mercantile economy grew, the competition between colonial empires intensified, and an inevitable problem was surging. That is, the traditional production methods was inefficient to meet the demands of growing urbanization and consumption. Because in the early days of this era, it was easy to use slaves in colonial regions as part of the core capital to harvest and mine. But as every other country was taking their slice from this global expansion, finding slaves was becoming more expensive. And on top of that, the ones who were faster to ship and distribute new goods from the new worlds was carving the lion's share. This competition accelerated financing new innovative solutions, and finally, they had invented one of the most important general purpose technology, GPT, after the invention of water wheels a couple of centuries ago, that is, the steam engines. And thus, a new chapter began, the industrial economy. This was the era of engineering race essentially. We saw the rise of factories, trains, automobiles, and most importantly, yet another important general purpose technology, the electricity. And it marked a turning point in human history by propelling innovation for efficiency from all industries to human life. And as usual, the emerging problem of prior era, which is the inability of traditional production methods to meet the rapidly growing demands of urbanization, globalization, and consumption, become the dominant problem of this era because early mercantile systems reliant on manual labor and small-scale production were simply insufficient to scale with the increasing complexity of this global trade. And the solution came in the form of mechanization with the invention of steam engines, kickstarting this transformation, enabling factories to mass produce goods at an unprecedented speed. This was followed by groundbreaking innovations such as railroads, automobiles, and the harnessing of electricity, which revolutionized the whole economy. The core capital of this era was physical machinery, fossil fuels like coal and oil, and industrial labor. These elements formed the backbone of industrialization, providing both the power and the workforce to fuel rapid economic expansion. However, as with every other era, the solution of the industrial economy gave rise to countless problems. Urbanization brought overcrowding, increasing environmental degradation, and widening income inequality among nations and among cities. The accumulation of wealth in industrial nations actually created tensions between imperial powers, leading to global conflicts like two world wars. And as industrialization reached its peak, a brand new problem began to emerge. The sheer volume of information and increased complexity in decision making led to inefficiencies in managing these increasingly interconnected systems. Manual processes, while powerful, could not keep pace with the demands of an increasingly globalized economy, actually, and this led to the next pivotal shift, that is, the knowledge economy. Knowledge economy emerging after the World War II and gaining momentum by the 50s, 1950s, represented a profound shift in value creation. It was no longer machinery and labor that held the highest value, but rather information expertise and intellectual property. And we saw the rise of computers, internet, and countless specialties under every industry. The dominant problem of this era is the most complex one since now because industrial economy caused too many problems to be handled at the same time. I found them easier to be classified under a three-dimensional matrix. The first dimension of problems is economic activities. This is the brand new problem that emerged in industrial economy. The incomprehensible amount of information leading to decision-making processes more complex than ever, forged by the inefficiencies in increasingly interconnected systems. The traditional industrial methods could not address the complexities of the modern communication, finance, and innovation needs. The second dimension of problems is energy required to operate this new economy. As industrial economy created a rapid growth of industries, lack of energy became a thing. This was the first time in our history that the easily available energies like wood and coal fire become insufficient for our needs. So we shifted towards high power energy production through other carbon based fuels mainly. And an emerging problem under this dimension kicked off. That is the increased carbon emission leading to climate crisis. And the third dimension of problems are societal and cultural. Crowded cities and toxic manufacturing processes brought new diseases to our lives. And increased inequality failed wealth distributions further, even further. And this inequality broke social trust bonds and many more issues in societies. And any combination of these three dimensions have their own subset of problems. So a partial solution to these problems came with the digital revolution in the knowledge economy era. Computers, telecommunications, and the internet enabled collection, storage, and analysis of information on an unprecedented scale. And actually, computers and the internet became the new general purpose technology that's driven this era. Educated people and businesses leverage this new capability to optimize processes, innovate products, and create entirely new markets, and obviously get return from the value they created. Intellectual property, research and development, networks of educated human intelligence become the core capitals of this knowledge economy. And this drives exponential growth and innovation. Yet, as knowledge and technology spread, a new problem began to surface, that is, the limits of human cognitive capacity in processing and making decisions in this newly created hyper-complex world by the knowledge economy. Additionally, automation began replacing jobs that accelerated the social and economic inequality further. And this explosion of digital technologies also created challenges in data security, privacy, and ethical governance. These emergent issues set the stage for the next transformative era, that is the AI economy. We are still in the early days of this era, and for the time being, it is currently characterized by like artificial narrow intelligence, automation, and data-driven decision making, right? And as we talked about, the dominant problem of this emerging era is the intensified emerging problem of need for efficiency, sustainability, and decision making in an hyper complex, interconnected, and resource constrained global system. With the traditional knowledge systems overwhelmed by the speed and the scale of modern challenges, we all need a new paradigm. And furthermore, AI economy has also the burden of countless dominant problems what knowledge economy failed to address during its era. It is not a big surprise that the solution will lie in the entire range of artificial intelligence applications and machine learning, mostly driven by advances in neuroscience, because AI systems can process massive data sets, identify patterns, and make predictive decisions far faster than humans. And we see that data is becoming the new core capital alongside AI algorithms and computing infrastructure. And a new form of capital is born. It is the human AI synthesized intelligence, maybe we can call that. And these are the this will be the core capital of this era. However, as always, new problems are arising as we shifted towards this AI economy on top of already inflated problems. The emerging ethical concerns about AI bias, recent forecasts about job displacement due to automation, and the concentration of power among tech giants are now becoming central issues of this economy, at least in these early days. Moreover, environmental sustainability remains a critical challenge because now AI needs more energy than ever, requiring innovation beyond just technological fixes. As we look ahead, the AI economy presents opportunities for unprecedented efficiency and innovation, but also demands that we address these challenges thoughtfully, ensuring that the benefits are equitably distributed, right? I'd like to highlight that the transition between these economic eras reveal a recurring pattern that I have talked through this entire video, that the emergent problem of one era becomes the dominant problem of the next era. And this is a very important pattern. Please do not fall into the hypes of recent shiny AI products and lost your trust in humanity, and do not fall into the traps of this dark dystopia framed by mainstream media. Understanding these patterns between transitions help us anticipate the future and navigate its challenges as we transition fully into the AI economy. Systems thinking, which is our next series topic, becomes an indispensable tool to prepare for and thrive in this era of rapid change and address these dominant problems of this era. Thank you for joining me today on this exploration. In the next video, we will dive deeper into how artificial intelligence is shaping the new economy in details and what opportunities it represents for us to adapt and succeed. If you found this insightful, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. And until next time, let's keep learning and growing together.